Gale, a brawler that finally fell from being one of the best brawlers in the game. This rarely happens to Gale because of its overpowering mechanics he have, but this ended up making me wondering, why and how did Gale fell from being really good? Well, to find that out, we have to dive into the history of Gale. On May 13, 2020, the first ever Brawl Pass season Terrace Bazaar got released, was the first chromatic Gale, alongside his Brawl Pass skin, Merchant Gale. Back then, Gale's attack, star power, and gadget worked way differently than now. Gale's attack released 5 large snowballs instead of 6 small snowballs like today. Also, whenever Gale used the super, it would also knock him back by a few tiles. The spring ejector gadget would get him forward by 12 tiles instead of 6. Even his second star power was completely different, but I'll mention the changes later in the video. At the time, Gale was pretty solid being in the B tier. He wasn't completely overpowered because his super attack wasn't that good back then. But his spring ejector gadget was the thing that was keeping him up. 12 tiles from the gadget was really useful, and you can use it to just like rush in the Ike turret without a bot with this gadget. On June 3, 2020, Supercell released Gale's second star power, Second Wind. You might be confused what this star power even is if you didn't play Brawl Stars back then, but this star power was the first ever second star power Gale got before it got replaced with Freezing Snow. The mechanic of Second Wind was completely different from Freezing Snow. If you have the Second Wind star power equipped, if you hit your enemies with your super, they will get a speed boost for 3 seconds. This star power was honestly not that good. The speed boost was not that long, it's completely useless in solo showdown, and most of the times you're using your super on the enemies, not your teammate. On July 2nd, 2020, Supercell landed Gale with an attack change and some nerfs. They ended up changing so Super won't knock himself back and will only knock back the enemy that gets hit by it. I have no clue if this was useful because I didn't have Gale at the time, but I guess it wasn't that good since it got removed. His attack also changed, so instead of landing 5 huge snowballs, Gale's attack will land 6 small projectiles instead. This ended up making his attack way easier to land and deal more damage. The nerfs he received in this update was attack nerfed by 40, and his attack which got nerfed from 3 tiles to 2. These changes were the changes Gale needed because in the next tier list Kairos Time posted, he went all the way to the top of the tier list overall to S tier and was the best brawler at the time in the meta. On August 18, 2020, Gale ended up getting nerfed. He got a 40 damage nerf and they highered his attack required to charge a super from 10 to 12. On September 10, 2020, Gale's spring ejector gadget got nerfed from 12 titles to 6 titles. This was a huge nerf to his spring ejector gadget because half the distance of a jump pad isn't that good. Still, this gadget was still decent, but honestly doesn't feel that good anymore. Also, this gadget got an altered look. This was also the time that his second star power got replaced. They replaced it with a new one called Freezing Snows. All enemies that Gale hits get slowed for 0.3 seconds. This new star power was way better than his old one, but at the time his Blustery Blow star power was a better choice, since it only slowed for 0.3 seconds unlike today, which is 0.5. On October 10, 2020, Gale's reload speed went up from 1.2 seconds to 1.4. All these nerfs he received so far heavily affected him by a lot. It made him go down in all modes except for Siege, which led him to go from S tier all the way down to the A tier. He's still a solid brawler, but not as overpowered as he used to. On December 15, 2020, Gale finally got buffed. His health ended up getting buffed by 200. On December 23, 2020, the Supercell made skin Nutcracker Gale was released, costing 149 gems. In the beginning of 2021, Gale was struggling a bit. He went from the A tier to the B tier, and started to go down to the F tier in some of the modes. Even in Siege he went down. It looks like Supercell noticed that Gale was struggling, because on March 15, 2021, his super damage got buffed by 100. But this buff wasn't enough, which ended up leading him to the F tier. On June 6, 2021, they buffed his Freezing Snow star power. The slow duration went up from 0.3 seconds to 0.5. On July 22, 2021, they released Gale's second gadget, Twister. This gadget was extremely good, being able to knock back brawlers that tried to jump or just get onto him. This was probably the thing he was missing out. Unfortunately, that means his spring ejector gadget is completely useless now. Welcome to the garbage bin, Gale's spring ejector gadget. But did this Twister solve Gale's problem of staying in the F tier? Well, it didn't. The only mode Gale was decent was in Hot Zone. On August 25, 2021, Gale's True Silver and Gold skins got released. On October 27, 2021, Gale's Brawler class was changed from Support to Hybrid. On November 11, 2021, the Bollywood skin Squeak Buster Gale got released, costing 149 gems. On December 16, 2021, his super damage got increased by 180 damage. In the beginning of 2022, Gale ended up going all the way from the F tier to the B tier. The reason why is that in that current meta, tanks were really good and Gale is very good at handling tanks. On March 1, 2022, his Blustery Star Power stun duration got buffed from 1 second all the way to 1.5, and this ended up being the buff Gale needed. The extra half a second really helps him drive in the meta, and he went from the B tier to the A tier. On April 27, 2022, his blustery blow star power of course got nerfed. It went down from 1.5 second to 1.25. Even though Supercell nerfed the star power, he was still really good, staying near the top of the A tier. Gale ended up staying in the A tier throughout the year. On December 12, 2022, Gale got nerfed very hard. The shots required to charge his super went up from 12 to 5. His super recharge rate was decreased by 40%, and his twister gadget duration went down from 10 to 5 seconds. This nerf made him go down in the tier list from A tier to the B tier. He's still a solid choice in the current meta, but not a lot of players are using him in competitive matches because of the huge nerfs he received. So this is how Gale ended up falling from being overpowered. If you found this useful, make sure to subscribe and I will see you in the next video.